look, I'll be completely upfront about it. It's a bit of a risk on a phone-in to talk about elections overseas because none of us are taking part in them, or very, very few of us will be taking part in them. And you might think, well, what's the point in talking about something that very few of listeners are taking part in? The truth is that what happens in Israel does affect this country and our relationship with Israel. And given that there are clearly a lot of people in this country who are Jewish and who feel a strong sense of connection to Israel, they will have thoughts on what I feel is an increasingly worrying turn of events when it comes to the man who wants to lead them again, Benjamin Netanyahu. He is seeking a fifth term as Prime Minister. Israelis are going to the polls later on today, and he's been very vocal in this campaign about the fear of Palestine and of Israeli Arabs and what should happen to them. He's talked about things like resettling areas in the West Bank or annexing areas in the West Bank, making them part of the Israeli state and therefore perhaps tearing up the two-state peace solution. There has been a UN report into what Israeli soldiers were doing on the border with Gaza. They may have committed war crimes while responding to Palestinian protests on the Gazan border. A commissioner of the inquiry investigated the killing of 189 Palestinians. It found reasonable grounds to believe that Israeli snipers shot at children, medics and journalists. And then there was the comment that Netanyahu made not that long ago, saying, quote, Israel is not a state of all its citizens. He says Israel is the nation state of the Jewish people and it alone, which clearly upsets concerns massively those Israeli Arabs who live in Israel, who may well just have been told by their prime minister that they're not Israeli. And there are plenty of people saying that Israel faces a choice either between being a Jewish state and a democratic one. And I wonder whether that is actually of concern to a lot of people who look on at the elections in Israel from this country and think, I'm not quite sure where this country is headed, particularly someone like under Netanyahu. This was raised yesterday with the comments of a US presidential candidate, a guy called Beto O'Rourke, who's running to be the Democrat nomination for President of the United States. And clearly the US relationship with Israel is massively important, given the money and the funding and all the rest of it. And Beto O'Rourke branded Netanyahu a racist and an obstacle to peace in the Middle East. Have a listen to what he said.
The U.S.-Israel relationship is one of the most important relationships that we have on the planet. And that relationship, if it is to be successful, must transcend partisanship in the United States, and it must be able to transcend a prime minister who is racist, as he warns about Arabs coming to the polls, who wants to defy any prospect for peace as he threatens to annex the West Bank, and who has sided with a far-right racist party in order to maintain his hold on power. Now, I don't think that Benjamin Netanyahu represents the true will of the Israeli people or the best interests of the U.S.-Israel relationship or any path to peace for the people of the Palestinian Authority, the Gaza Strip, and the State of Israel.
Now, that is really strong. That is a potential next president of the United States saying that the current Prime Minister of Israel is a racist and an obstacle to peace in the Middle East. And I do wonder whether there are some people listening tonight who feel that that is a fair comment based on what they have seen of Benjamin Netanyahu, particularly in the run-up to this election day. And they are concerned that, you are concerned that, this country will have to change and wants to change its approach to Israel on the basis that it seems to be heading down a route that is very, very worrying. I mean, in order to gain enough support to form a majority government, Benjamin Netanyahu has sided with a party that is, some of whose members are banned from entering the US because they are considered terrorists. That is not necessarily a kind of party that you want to throw your lot into if you're running what is in effect what is meant to be a democratic country. 0345 6060 973. Let's turn to Zalmi Unsdorfer, who is chairman of Likud UK, which is, of course, the party of Benjamin Netanyahu. Zalmi, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time this morning. I wonder what you make, first of all, of those comments by Beto O'Rourke saying that Benjamin Netanyahu is a racist.
Well, it's hard to find anyone that Beto O'Rourke and his the phalanx of prospective Democrat candidates for the 2020 election haven't called racist. I mean, the Democratic Party in the United States has become extremely left-wing and almost leaning to become the socialist rather than the Democratic Party. And racism is their cri de coeur. So it doesn't surprise me that in a campaigning mode, Beto O'Rourke would say that. But
does it surprise you, though, that in a campaigning mode, Benjamin Netanyahu would say Israel is not a state of all its citizens?
Yes, I mean, this, I think, it relates to the Israeli nation-state law, because there are 22 Arab states and there is one Jewish state. And the important thing is that you know perfectly well, and we know you and I both live in Britain, we're going through this Brexit saga, and a lot of this in Europe is about sovereign states, about those people who want to throw all of the states of Europe into one big melting pot and lose national identity. And sovereign statehood is something that seems to have been kicked into the trash can. And what Israel is saying is that we stand as a sovereign state, and we are a nation state, and that's what we identify as.
But some of those areas where Israel is claiming its state is expanding are regarded as illegal under international law. Some of the settlements on the West Bank that Netanyahu said that he's going to annex, that throws completely the two-state solution that he has championed for many, many years completely up in the air. It would be impossible.
Well, first of all, I think the two-state solution is dead. The only people who speak about the two-state solution today, I think even the Arabs don't talk about the two-state solution. First of all, you have to understand that this entire settlement narrative, if I told you that the total amount of space that the settlements, Jewish settlements, occupy in what you call the West Bank and I call Judea Samaera, amounts to no more than 2%, I think you'd be surprised by the amount of publicity that's thrown at it. You'd think that we were occupying the entire. But
it doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter if it's 0.1%. If it's a legal occupation, it's a legal occupation.
Well, no, I don't. Well, I don't accept. We don't in the Likud accept that it's illegal occupation, because it is. First of all, it is territory which was captured in a defensive war, which under the Geneva Convention belongs to the victor. The whole point of the Geneva Convention was not to reward aggressors, but secondly, that West Bank territory was never Jordanian in any way. It was occupied by Jordan after 1940 in the 1948 war, and therefore, at the very least, it is disputed territory. But it's not illegal. It didn't belong to Jordan, and therefore we consider that it is legally liberated by us.
Well, let me ask you then about the Benjamin Netanyahu sidling up to a party called Jewish Power, which is an offshoot of the banned CAC movement, outlawed by Israel and the US because of its racist and extremist views. It says many fear if Netanyahu wins, Israel will have its most right-wing, ultra-nationalist government of all time. Are you concerned about that alignment between a party that by any definition is racist and Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, certainly that far right wing, Otzma Yehudit, is originally a Kahanist party. Kahani was a violent person, but he was also a visionary in terms of saying that there would never be a peace in the Middle East, because of those people who believe that the Middle East, the Arab-Israeli conflict, is a territorial conflict are completely mistaken. The Arabs don't want a two-state solution. They want the complete elimination of a Jewish state in any borders. So that
all of them.
So, yes. Well, the Palestinian. Well, I distinguish between Israeli Arabs, who are frankly the happiest Arabs in the entire Middle East, because 1.6 million of them are Israeli citizens and have full rights.
Well, 1.6 million of them are, but they were described by their own prime minister as not necessarily Israeli citizens.
No. That's totally incorrect. That's totally incorrect. He recognizes them as Israeli citizens, and moreover, he expects them to vote. And you opened up in your introduction that, or somebody actually, I think it maybe had been the quote from O'Rourke, saying that that Netanyahu was saying that the Arabs are going to vote us out of existence. Well, if they didn't have the power, they wouldn't have that.
Well, hang on a second. Again, I'll come back to that first quote. As Netanyahu said, Israel is not a state of all its citizens. Israel is the nation state of the Jewish people, and it alone.
That's correct. And that's
It's the nation state of the Jewish people and it alone.
No, it is the nation state of the Jewish people, and we share that state with 1.6 million Arabs, and who have full rights, and every other right that Israelis have, they have.
So the idea of "and it alone," Israel is the nation state of the Jewish people, and it alone is wrong.
Well, I think, and it's alone. I don't know where that quote came from. I would certainly say, and I would consider myself as right wing as Netanyahu is perhaps a little bit more right wing. Perhaps I would say that 1.6 million Israeli Arabs have full rights like every other Israeli, and they are equal citizens. When you talk about the Palestinian Arabs, or they call themselves Palestinians, I would say that the real Palestinians are the Jews, because Palestine was simply a renaming of Judea. That goes into history. I'm not going to bore you with it this time of the night, but I would say to you that those Palestinians who are under Abbas's rule and under Hamas's rule, they are in a terrible state, because they are living under a completely corrupt organization.
I think we'd agree on Hamas, but a lot of people would say that it is the Israeli blockade of Gaza which has led to the situation that they find themselves in, blockaded from air, land and sea since 2007.
Yes, if they stopped smuggling in weapons and missiles, you've seen plenty of reports of what happens when there is no supervision of what goes in, and
why would Netanyahu? Let's say he wins. It's very, very tight, but let's say he wins and gathers enough support to form a government. What would that then look like for Israel's attitude to Gaza and to the West Bank? Would Gaza be obliterated? Would it be completely pushed into the sea, as many people fear?
No, we left Gaza 15 years ago. The noose is tightening on Gaza in terms of the wanton aid that flows into Gaza, most of which comes from the European Union, and is quickly filtered away into Swiss bank accounts of the multi-millionaire Hamas leaders, and very little goes to the Arab on the street. I think I'm actually quite encouraged about what's happening in Gaza, because the Palestinian street in Gaza is rising up against Hamas, and that is something that should be encouraged. There needs to be an Arab Spring in Gaza.
And just finally, on the issue of people in Gaza Palestinians there being shot dead, 189, and this UN report found that there's grounds to believe that Israeli snipers shot at children, medics and journalists, even though they were clearly recognisable as such. Is that justifiable?
I think there was a medic that was injured. I'm not exactly sure of the facts, but you're talking about 189 people. There have been something like 24 weeks of riots with upwards of 50,000 people every weekend.
35 of the 189 Palestinians shot and killed were children.
But can I ask you, what do you think children are doing on a border?
Protesting.
Which mother brings a child to the border?
That's fine. That's a legitimate question to ask, but it's not.
To the border. The mother who brings the child to the border is a mother who is paid by Hamas. Please take your children to the border. We need them as human shields. That's the story. That's the real story.
That's not proven. That's not proven. You can question the morality of the mother who brings their child, but that's not an excuse for the child to be shot and killed. What's the child doing? Even if they are apparently acting as a human shield for Hamas, the child isn't doing anything. Or are you saying the children were carrying weapons or threatening to blow themselves up, or what?
No, unfortunately, the children are brought as human shields, and
so why shoot the child?
They sometimes will be trampled on. They sometimes will be caught up in all kinds of things. There's gas and there's all kinds of water cannon. I don't know, whatever they use.
But why shoot them dead?
But if Britain had this on its border every Friday, with people throwing bombs and incendiary devices and balloons with.
Well, you can understand the security response to that. I still don't understand why you need to shoot 35 children dead.
No, we don't need to shoot anybody. If nobody comes to the border, we don't have to shoot anybody. But on the other hand, if you have hundreds of thousands of people called to the border for the sole purpose of showing the world that Israelis kill innocent civilians, then that's going to happen. And, I have to say to you, I don't know of a single other army that takes more precautions to avoid civilian casualties and collateral damage than Israel's. And, Colonel Richard Kemp has given evidence to the Geneva inquiry on that more than once.
Zalmi, I'm really grateful for your time. We have to leave it there because we've run out of it. Thank you very much indeed. Zalmi Unsdorfer is the chairman of Likud UK. Likud, the party, of course, of Benjamin Netanyahu. Israelis going to the polls later today, the tightest election in many, many decades. Beto O'Rourke, as you heard, branding the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, as racist. Is he? 0345 6060 973 1290.